Okay, welcome to lecture Chem 110. We'll get started here in just a second. Give everybody a chance to get in. So again, as you can hopefully see on the screen there, Chem 110. And we'll get started here in just a second. Okay, so a couple of things. Welcome, first off. Hopefully everybody's in the right spot. I would assume you should be. Otherwise, you shouldn't have this link, I imagine, to come here. This is, again, Chem 110. But for the fall, my name is Mr. Efron. I'll be an instructor for the lecture and discussion portion of the course, and really your main instructor for the course. You will have another instructor there for the lab, which I think some of you will meet today, and some of you will meet on Wednesday when it's your first day of lab on that day. All right, a couple of things here before we get started. There is obviously a Zoom chat box window. And again, usually it might be underneath your participants window or to the right, usually on most screens. And again, that's a place where if you have any questions along the way here, you're more than welcome to ask. And I will definitely answer your questions. As I see them, if I need to, I'll go back and get to your questions. Looks like more people are rolling in here. Okay, so in addition, what we're going to use the chat little box there for is also we're going to use it for roll and attendance because nobody wants to sit here and listen to me call everybody's name every day and stuff like that. So the first thing that you should do when you come here for lecture, and you also come in for discussion as well on your day that you do have discussion, just type here in the chat box and hopefully your name should be associated with that when you log in. So once you do that now, so just make sure everybody can find it, go ahead and type here in the chat box and we'll use that for attendance. Also, a couple of things about the chat box before anybody gets too chatty, if you will. There's a couple of things, again, you should be aware of when you do send out a chat to everybody. That obviously everybody can see it. You can, if it's something private, if you don't want everybody to, hear your question or whatever it may be, you can privately chat it to me as well. So keep that in mind. If if you send it out to everybody, everybody will be able to read it. But if you want it more private, make sure you do that as well. Okay, perfect. So again, that's just sort of how we'll do a roll here. We'll take it here. And again, just sort of the first thing that you do when you come in here. That obviously doesn't mean you get to take off after you do that as well, because I obviously could see who's here, who takes off. But again, it's just a way we could do that. And again, like I see some people did, if for some chance your name isn't, you logged in with sort of your, kind of correct name, you could just kind of type your name next to it or something like that. So again, I know who it's here. And again, that will take care, hopefully, of the role aspect of it and stuff like that. All right, a couple other things, just a reminder as well. All of our class, obviously 100% of our class will be online here through Zoom. So all of the lectures, all of the labs, and also all of the discussions. In terms of the lectures and discussions, which obviously I'm in charge of, and in addition the overall class as well, obviously all of these will be recorded. So please keep that in mind as you're participating, both with your video, audio, any chats that you make. Obviously, please be respectful to everybody, both in language and nothing offensive or anything like that. So it don't have to kick you out of the class or anything of that nature. Obviously as well, video feeds, if they are on, please be respectful, properly dressed and everything like that, and make sure nothing bad is in your video as well. So make sure you do watch out for those things. In addition, they will be recorded, and obviously if you do participate with your microphone or anything like that, you may be part of those recordings. For the most part though, I will be the one basically doing the talking. So the way that I believe it is set up for it to record is it will record the active speaker, which in 99% of the time probably will be me. So I will probably be the majority of all video that will be left on those recordings. Again, though, if you do ask a question or something like that, or let your microphone open, and you do talk, your video and feed will probably be part of that recording at that point. But probably most of the time, it will just probably end up being me and what we're lecturing on as part of those recordings. So again, if you keep your video on, usually again, if you're not speaking with your microphone, it will not record your video during the lectures and stuff like that, just to let you know how that usually works. But again, usually it is the sort of microphone or user microphone, and if you actively speak, and then it will kind of flash you up on the screen and stuff like that. All right. So let's talk about then sort of the class and make sure everybody's on the same page here. I don't know about you. It seems like summer went really quick. My summer just ended last week, my class, so very quick turnaround. But this is Chem 110, and it is for allied health majors. So this is typically the chemistry that you take when you're sort of in the nursing sort of program or that sort of path. This is really not the class that you take if your path is more chemistry based, where you want to take general chemistry 1 and general chemistry 2 and kind of continue on with chemistry courses. But this is usually the one, again, for nursing majors or, you know, that type of path. Usually it's this one, and then you're off to, I think you're off to like biology or something after that's this class. As I mentioned before, I will be your instructor for the lecture part and the discussion part. And there's my name, again, Mr. Efron's fine, Professor Efron, whatever you'd like to call me. But Mr. Efron's perfectly fine. My email address there is aefron@realhondo.edu. It is really, as you can imagine, the best way and only way really to reach me if you need to reach me for any reason. You can use that for anything. You could use it for general questions about the class. You could also use it for more specific questions about the class if you do have more specific questions. I do check it very, very often. Many times throughout the day, really, I do go around and check it. I do teach, though, 4 or 5 classes. So when I'm not here, I'm usually teaching some other class somewhere else. Well, usually, well, now right here, all classes, but I'm in a different class at that point. But I will get back to you. I usually try to check all my emails sort of at once. And I do check out through the day, through the evening, even sometimes early in the morning, 2, 3 in the morning, can't sleep. I sometimes will check it. So I definitely will get back to you. I will say, though, if it's something specific, for example, like you needed help on question 4 on something, and you just say, hey, I need help on question 4. I, much like you, don't really know where my book is probably, or carry it around with me and stuff like that. So I wouldn't know what number 4 says until I find it and then look it up. So probably the best approach, if it's something that you sort of need maybe a response to, is just to type into the email the question. It doesn't have to be word for word. It doesn't have to be exact, but enough information that I could read it and then probably get it back to you, an answer by just reading your email. That's probably the best way to do that. Again, if you say like, hey, I need help on number 4, you have to wait until I kind of find number 4 and figure out what it is. So I'll be your instructor. And again, the main instructor for the course, for lecture and discussion. For the lab part of the course, you have Professor Walton. She will be your instructor for the lab part. Whether you have it on Monday or Wednesday, you both will have obviously the same lab instructor as well. So let's talk about sort of the days and all that good stuff. So you're here, so obviously you know, but we do have 2 sections together here for lecture. So for lecture, we're both together, both sections, and one is 77033 and one is 77034. You both have lecture at the exact same time. So normally we're in a big lecture room together on right next to the science division office on the 2nd floor. So we have lecture from 5:30 to 6:55, and that's both on Monday and Wednesday. So both days we do have lecture. And then half of you will have discussion next. So for example, today, 77034 has discussion on Monday from 7 to 7:55. While they have discussion, the other class will go off to lab from 7 to 10 p.m. And then we basically flip it around on Wednesday. On Wednesday, the ones that had discussion on Monday will go to lab, and the ones that had lab on Monday will come to discussion. So there's really 3 parts of the class: a lecture part, which everybody's together Monday, Wednesday, 5:30 to 6:55. And then you have either discussion on Monday or discussion on Wednesday, and vice versa, either lab on Monday or lab on Wednesday. Let me be very clear, just like it is in person, which is basically what this class is. This class basically is a in-person class that's being taught online, and it will basically behave that way as an in-person class. Everything will meet again during its scheduled times. And also what that means is if you are registered for section 77033, you have lab on Mondays and discussion on Wednesdays. And those are the days that you should go to both of those places. You can't just choose one day. One week I'll go on Monday, next week I'll go on Wednesday. You have to attend the one that you are officially registered for. It just makes it easier. We know who is where and where you should be on each of those days. And again, same thing if you're on 77034, you have lab on Wednesday, and that is the day you should go to lab. And you have discussion on Monday, and again, that is the day that you should go to discussion. So regardless, although, and it happens sometimes in person as well, people feel like they could go whichever one they want because it's all the same class. You cannot. So to keep everybody sort of in the correct area at the correct time, and we all know where everybody should technically be, you do have to maintain to the schedule that you signed up for and that you are enrolled in. So again, go on your correct lab day, otherwise you will be counted absent, and go on your correct discussion day, otherwise you will be obviously counted absent as well. So you are required to hit all 3 of those things every week. So you got to hit both lectures. You do have to hit the lab that you're scheduled for and the discussion. They're not optional. You can't just choose to come to part of the class and not the other part. You do have to come to the entire class. So again, like I said, this is essentially a face-to-face class, and that's how it's going to be taught, which means there is an attendance policy. If you miss too many hours of the class during the scheduled time, you will be dropped. There are assignments and due dates for those assignments, and for the most part, they will be during our class time. All quizzes, exams, all that kind of stuff will take place during our scheduled time and everything like that. So again, even though it's an online class, this is not really an online class where you sort of work at your own pace. You know, there's, you know, kind of turn things in as you go. You are required to be here, and you're already required, just like if you were coming to campus and coming to class, you do need to be here and do things on time. That also means that there are going to obviously be due dates and due times for things. which means if you do turn those things in late, there will be penalties for that as well. Again, not like a work at your own pace type class and those type of things. So let's talk a little bit about the class. Again, Chem 110 is designed for those the nursing type background and that type of career path and sort of health majors. It does cover a lot of topics and a lot of material in this class. We do general chemistry, so we do all of the general chemistry. So the first like 9 chapters is general chemistry. Then we roll into organic chemistry, and we do a bunch of organic chemistry for 4 chapters, I think. And then we finish up with some biochemistry like proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids, and that's another 3 chapters. So all told, if I remember correctly, I think we are somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 chapters for this particular class. And that is a lot of material. And we do cover a lot of stuff in each of those chapters. And if you just think about the scheduling of this sort of class, normal scheduling, online scheduling, regular time of this class, there's about 16 weeks, I think. And obviously we have almost 16 chapters to cover. So just to give you an idea, pace-wise for this class, you know, it does go relatively fast. I try to go as slow as I can, but at some point we won't finish everything that we need to finish if we go too slow. So just to keep in mind, if you think about the days we lose for exams and holidays that we typically have, you know, we have probably in all told 12-ish weeks or so to do 16 chapters. So as you can imagine, that's not even obviously a chapter a week and stuff like that. So you definitely in this class is not a class like I'll just kind of figure it out later or catch up later. You will be in some trouble in this class if you try to do that, because we definitely will be on to new stuff. And it's a very difficult class in that sense because they do cover a lot of material here at this particular school. I teach at other schools where they break this class up into 2 separate classes. They do the general chemistry one semester, the organic and stuff the other semesters. But here we still do pretty much everything all in one semester. So it does make it very difficult. And for the most part, most people that take this class maybe haven't taken chemistry before. It's maybe been a while if they have taken chemistry. So it does make it relatively hard, this class, in that sense. It is definitely doable, but you do have to realize it does take a lot of time outside of class time to study, prepare, and do well in this class. And, you know, it's really something that you got to keep on pace with everything. Otherwise, like I said, you may run into some trouble. In terms of the textbooks that you need for our class, we're going to go with our normal stuff for this class, which is it should be the Principles of General Organic and Biological Chemistry. It should be the 2nd edition by Smith. The custom one is just in the bookstore. That's typically the one that they sell. And the custom just means that it essentially has all the chapters we use in it. You can find the book. It's been out a while, I think, so you can find the book somewhere else, and it may have a different cover. I almost want to say it's been a while since I've seen the actual cover of it, but I almost want to say it has like a flower or something on it. And you could get that book if you want. So in terms of the textbook, to be truthfully honest with you, we'll never do anything like take out your textbook and we'll do something out of it, just so you know. You do have to do homework problems out of the textbook, so you need access to it somehow. So, you know, whatever's the best for you in terms of a price and that type of thing in terms of the textbook, you could do, but do try to obviously get the right edition of the textbook. And again, it's been out for a little bit, so you might be able to find it maybe relatively cheaper. I don't know what the bookstore is selling it for, but that is the textbook we're using. For the lab manual, it is the General Organic and Biological Chemistry by Timberlake. And that one, I believe, and she probably will have more information for you, I think, when you come to lab, but you should get that one. There probably shouldn't be any used ones of that one because typically speaking, the actual book itself, you do all the writing and the experiments in it, you rip it out, and that's what you turn in. So if you buy a used one, there's probably no pages in it very much that you need. So you'll need your own for that. Everybody will need obviously their own because you're going to have to do it and then obviously upload it, and the actual experiment and stuff like that comes from the pages in the lab manual and stuff like that. So that's it for us. Now they may have with our class something about mastering chemistry and another sort of thing. We're not going to use that. I decided not to use it. So we're not going to use this. So we're just going to use what we normally use for this class, which is this textbook and the lab manual that you need. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat box as we go through this. Also, obviously, everything here is going to be done online. So obviously a computer with a webcam and access to a printer is going to be extremely helpful in this course, because pretty much you're going to have some things that you're going to need to print. You have some things that you're going to need to upload. And again, it'll help you participate in lecture, lab, discussion, exams, quizzes, attendance. There may be some proctoring of exams and quizzes that might require a computer with a webcam, just to let you know. So, you know, that's sort of some equipment that you may need for this class to make it obviously easier to do and to successfully do it. Other things that you need, scientific calculator. So really just a basic calculator that's able to do log function, has an exponent button on it. Those are essentially the ones that you'll need. Nothing really fancy. You don't really need a graphing calculator or anything like that. So just a basic scientific calculator. So if you've taken a math class, you're probably good in terms of what you need there. Safety goggles, you know, in case you're at home and want to wear them during lab, I suppose. I just felt like it's a chemistry class. You'd probably still keep that in there, I suppose. But obviously, we are not coming to campus to do anything. But, you know, if you like the look for lab, I'm sure she might appreciate it. I don't know. But obviously, you won't need safety goggles this time around or anything like that. You should obviously think about you bring in your textbook or have your textbook available in case you do have questions, especially during discussion time. Obviously, you should have your calculator with you for every lecture, discussion, and lab. In lab, you'll probably have to do some calculations. In lecture, we will go over calculations, and it's a good idea to have the calculator that you're going to use on a quiz or an exam, so you know how to properly punch things into the calculator. It is going to make it a lot easier. Let's see here. It is no use of anything like cell phones or any type of electronic devices, obviously, on quizzes, exams, or anything like that. They are typically closed notes. You're expected to not use anything other than what's provided for you in the exam or quiz. And that's a good way to get an F and not pass the class, by doing those stupid things, yes? As I said before, it is essentially web-based. So pretty much, I would say probably 99% of what you will have to turn in for this class, be it a quiz, an exam work, homework, I believe labs as well. It's oftentimes going to go through, it is going to go through our Canvas site, and you're going to be able to upload it onto our Canvas site. So a couple of things that might make some things a little bit easier for you to do that. They do have a student Canvas app, and so you could maybe get that on your phone. That sometimes makes it a lot easier, my understanding as well. In addition, pretty much what you upload usually will have to be some type of PDF file. So some type of app or something like that to convert things into a PDF file would also be a good thing to have. Here's a link, and you don't have to use Adobe Scan, which is what this link is for. The links for Adobe Scan, you can use any other type of PDF maker that you have if you want, or however you want to do it. If you have a scanner, you could use that. You know, if you got a printer that scans as well, you can turn it into a PDF file. You could take pictures and put it into Word or something like that and save it as a PDF file. You know, however you do it, whatever you upload does need to end up in a PDF sort of format as a file. One file sort of uploaded. So again, these are a couple of apps that might make that process a little bit easier for you. My understanding as well is if you have sort of the Canvas app on your phone and you sort of use like a PDF app on your phone to turn it into that, you could almost seamlessly sort of just upload it really easily to the Canvas site, and it might make uploading that stuff a little bit easier for you. But again, don't have to use Adobe Scan. You can use whatever it is. There's all kinds of other ones like Chem, Scanner, and stuff like that. So whatever you want to use, however you want to do it, but pretty much since we are not in person, everything will need to be uploaded through the Canvas site as a PDF file. So again, if you're not sort of familiar doing those type of things, you might want to figure out how you're going to do that. Obviously, before you need to start really starting to upload things, you want to maybe practice kind of doing those so you have an idea as to how that sort of works. Like I said, proctoring of assignments, including quizzes and exams, may also be web-based. You might do it through a Zoom meeting like this, where you might have to have your camera on. You may use Proctorial, which is a computer proctoring program, or we may use some other method, which I may describe to you. But just know that is a possibility. And again, most of those things will require some type of computer with a webcam and have it on for those exams or quizzes. And again, we'll have more information on that a little bit later on as we go through, but just keep that in mind. Attendance in the class is required. And again, it's required for the lecture, the discussion, the laboratory. Again, it is mandatory. If you miss too many hours of the scheduled time, like I said before, you may be dropped from the course. You are expected, obviously, to arrive on time. Like I said before, we are going to just kind of use the chat box there for definitely one aspect for roles. So for those that maybe just came in as well, you do want to make sure that you are here on time, and you want to make sure that you type here into the chat box as role. And also you could use the chat box for other questions that you have throughout the time. So you just want to get into a habit, again, as we talked about at the beginning of lecture and discussion, just type here into the box, and we'll use that for role. Also as well, we may take some quizzes during lecture or discussion time. And again, those may occur at the beginning or they may occur at the end. I will definitely announce when it will occur. But again, if you arrive late during a quiz or something like that, you will not get any extra time or anything like that. You'll get whatever time is left, just like if we were in person and you strolled in 20 minutes after class started and the quiz is almost over, you would get maybe 5 minutes to finish the quiz. So again, it's going to work just like that. Make it very simple for everybody. It's just the same time and everything. And that way, hey, it's going to occur during these hours. You don't have to guess when something's going to happen. And obviously things will be announced. I would also say in terms of the laboratory, if I'm not mistaken, you will have some quizzes in there. And I believe, and like I said before, she will give you some more information on that. But I believe that she will be giving those quizzes towards the beginning of lab. So you definitely don't want to arrive late there either. So you want to make sure that everything's there, that you're there on time. In terms of homework, there will be homework problems that you need to do. The homework problem is going to be out of the textbook, and we'll see a list here on the syllabus towards the end. Just a couple things about the homework, and it always gets people. The actual problems themselves are found throughout the actual reading. So when you look in your textbook, there'll be like a section of reading. And then after that section of reading, there may be 1 question, 2 questions, 3 questions. And then there'll be another section of reading, which may have 1, 2, 3 questions. And then at the end of all the reading part of the chapter, at the end of the chapter, there's the rest of the questions. So it's a very common question people have is like, where are all these homework problems? And they're not at the end of the chapter like they traditionally are. A lot of them are just kind of scattered throughout the actual reading part of the chapter. So keep that in mind. When you're looking for these homework problems. You do not have to write the problem out or anything like that, but any problem that has work associated with it, you do need to show all the work, all the setup and all that if you want all the points. If you don't care about all the points, then you don't have to show anything, I suppose, and not turn anything in, but I hope you do care about the points. Should be on some fresh paper, yes. And the only thing I ask is if you could start a new chapter on a fresh page. So sometimes people like to do all their homework and then they got some room left and they decide I'm just going to start like chapter 2 in the middle of the page and continue on, and then start chapter 3 at the top of the next page. And before you know it, everything sort of blends together. So when you're doing the homework, A, it should be handwritten, not typed. B, just for every new chapter of the homework. So for chapter 1, start on a fresh page. For chapter 2, start on a fresh page. Just don't have a running sort of thing of everything going on. Like normal, like anything else, homework, quizzes, and stuff like that, if I can't read it, I can't grade it. So you won't get so many good points on that. We will have quizzes, and the quizzes may occur during lecture time, may occur during discussion time, and it will occur online through our Canvas site. So there'll be Canvas quizzes. The quizzes will include lecture material, assigned reading, homework type problems, no makeups on there. The quizzes are going to be pretty sort of straightforward, if you will, in the sense of you won't have to upload anything. It's sort of, right answer, wrong answer type of deal. You'll get a question, you'll answer the question, go to the next one, get a question, answer it, and we'll have, I'm not sure how many total quizzes we will have. They will be announced. They won't be like pop quizzes or anything like that. So you'll have, you'll have some notice, obviously, of when we're going to have a quiz, what material it will cover and stuff like that. So again, it won't just be like a pop quiz or anything like that, because I can't remember to do those pop quizzes. So it will definitely be announced. But the quizzes will definitely take place through the Canvas. And again, you get one shot at it. You get a certain time limit to do it. And for the quizzes, you will not have to upload any type of work or anything associated with it. It'll just be, you can work it out and kind of give the answer, and it is what it is in terms of the grade on that. Now, exams, we'll have 3 different exams throughout the semester. They will cover multiple chapters. And again, you'll know exactly, obviously, what chapters they cover. It's also, I think, on the syllabus, what chapters they cover. And the exams will be probably a couple of different parts or a couple of different ways. There probably will be a multiple choice sort of section to the exam, and there'll be a section where you'll work out the problems, where you have to show some work for some certain problems. So almost like a multiple choice part and a written part of the exam is typically how the exam will sort of fold out. Multiple choice part, you just got to give the answer, obviously. For the written part, again, there may be specific questions where you'll need to show your work for possible partial credit and stuff like that, which again, obviously will require you to upload your work in the Canvas site and stuff like that. Again, they will cover multiple chapters, and we'll have about 3 of them spaced out through the semester. We will also have a final that is cumulative, so it will cover all the chapters. So all 16 chapters or whatever we got, 15, 16 chapters. It will cover everything from the beginning to the end. Each individual exam is not cumulative in the sense of material, but if you learned how to do something in, say, for exam 1, like you learned how to do, I don't know, conversions or something like that, you can in exam 2 go, all conversions was like exam 1 material. I no longer know how to do that. So in that sense, the exams do sort of build on one another, but the material itself would come from, obviously, the specific chapters that will be covered on that exam. No makeup exams for any reason, no makeup finals. There's just kind of no wish to do those things, unless obviously there's some type of verifiable, legitimate excuse other than I didn't study the exams on Monday. I'm more of a Wednesday exam taker, I have 2 other exams, so I felt like yours wasn't that important, so can I do it some other day? So you do have to take these things when they're scheduled, and no makeup exams, no late exams or anything like that. In terms of the homework as well, I think I might have skipped over it, but in terms of the homework, typically homework will be due on exam day. And what that means is whatever chapters are on that particular exam on that day is when you should turn in the homework for it. So for example, I think the first exam covers chapters 1 through 3 or 1 through 4 or something like that. So on the day that we take exam 1, that will be the day that you'll be required to upload your work for homeworks for chapters 1 through 4. The reason I let you hang on to it that long is it gives you a good opportunity, hopefully, to do the problems. Also gives you hopefully a good opportunity to ask questions if you need questions, if you need help during discussion or something like that. You know, it gives you a pretty good opportunity to sort of get help on anything that you should hopefully need help with. You also could then use it if you needed to study with or something like that. So that's typically when homework is due, on the day of the exam. Whatever chapters are being covered, that is the day that the actual homework will be due. Now, discussion sections, which again, you do have once a week. So you either have it on Monday or you have it on Wednesday. And for the most part, discussion sections will be used for discussion. So what that usually entails is usually at the beginning of discussion period, you know, I usually just ask if, you know, if there's any questions, and those can be questions regarding homework. That could be questions regarding the material we maybe been lecturing on or something like that, sort of an open question type of session. And then usually what happens is a lot of those questions will die down. So for the rest of the time, and you are required to remain in discussion, for the rest of the time, you could work on something, be it a worksheet, homework, maybe the lab or pre-lab questions for the upcoming lab. You know, so those are good places. Again, you could work on something. I will be there. If you have questions, you could chat me a question. You know, you could get those clear questions answered. So for the most part, discussions time will be used for that. It's a really good opportunity if you take advantage of it to get help on things. And a lot of classes like this no longer have discussion parts of the class. They're just lecture and lab, and that's it. So you guys still have in this sort of class a part where it's, you know, a good time to get help if you need help. And again, even here online, you could privately just chat me a question. You don't have to ask it in front of everybody, and I could just chat back to you if you like. I could also have the ability, if it's something more complicated, to work out on the screen some information and kind of help you through it and stuff like that. So again, I highly recommend, and oftentimes what people do in this class is they oftentimes will not take advantage of the discussion section and kind of blow it off or really not get a lot out of it. And it really is a good opportunity to get a lot of help that you might need. Again, it is required, it's not optional. You're expected to be here on your discussion day, whatever day that might be. In addition, we will throughout the semester, just because of the amount of material that there is throughout the semester, we will probably use some discussion time to do some lecturing, depending on sort of where we're at. And we may also use discussion time for quizzes as well. So we'll use it for a lot of things, but mainly hopefully we'll be on track as much as we can be, and sort of use it for that sort of question and answer, but we may do some lecturing and some quizzes as well. Now, in terms of the laboratory, the lab is an important part of the class. Normally, it's where you get your hands-on, virtually, I guess, hands-on approach this year. But it will sort of complement a lot of the topics, obviously, that we cover in lecture. We'll do our best, and again, your lab instructor is aware of it as well. You know, it does happen throughout the semester that, you know, at some point, we may not be perfectly lined up in terms of lecture material and laboratory material. It just always sort of happens. So just to give you a heads up on that. And the way that you could also sort of benefit from the discussions thing is you see coming up you have a lab next week, and it's like on something that maybe we haven't got to yet. Again, that's a good opportunity to sort of let me know that during discussion, in case I'm not aware of it, which sometimes happens. And again, I could kind of give you maybe like a cliff note sort of version of what's going on in the lab, so you at least have an understanding of what's going on in that until we sort of get to it and stuff like that. We're usually not tremendously far off, but depending on sort of where we end in lecture and what the next week's lab may start out with, it may not be perfectly 100% synced. Again, we'll do our best to try to do that. Obviously, anytime we're not, I will do my best to let her know so she has an understanding of where we are in terms of material, and maybe she needs to give you some extra information about the lab that you may be performing. You do need to pass the lab part along with the rest of the class. Obviously, to pass the class, you can't just pass the lecture part and fail the lab. You do have to complete the lab and pass the lab component as well to qualify to pass the class. There will be no makeup labs. Anything missing will receive 0. Again, there's still deadlines, still a face-to-face type of course. So as I mentioned before, there is some penalty if you obviously turn in something late. So a couple of things that she wanted to mention. Again, she is also going to do the lab part at the scheduled time. So again, if you have Monday lab, you should go to lab starting at 7. If you have Wednesday lab on Wednesday, you could go at 7. Again, depending on which section you are enrolled in and which lab day that you have is the day that you should attend. She's going to have a live Zoom meeting, just like we're doing here. And you will have a quiz based on the lab that you'll be covering that week. Not today, I don't think, but as soon as you start going into labs, I think maybe next week or maybe the following week after that. They sometimes stagger the quizzes, not necessarily the first or second week, but they might this time. You will have a lab quiz. So again, like I said before, I believe that's her idea, that she's going to be giving those quizzes at the beginning of lab. So obviously you want to make sure that you're on time so you don't miss any of that type of stuff. I'm assuming she's also going to give sort of a discussion of what's going on with that lab, the idea behind it, maybe some examples of the calculations, if there's some calculations involved in there. So again, all this stuff is going to obviously occur at the beginning of the lab meeting. So you want to make sure that you do arrive on time. Usually I tell people don't get lost when you go upstairs, but here, don't get lost re-logging back in after our lecture. So I will keep that in mind as well. Just like in person, even though it's online, they really schedule these things back to back. There's not a big space between. So technically we're done at 6:55 and lab starts at 7. So just to give you a heads up on that, I'll try to not go over 6:55, obviously, so you could get set up to go to lab, maybe stand up and stretch or whatever you need to do. Let's see, she'll also be there, I believe, during those Zoom meetings. Again, if you're working on the experiments, I believe, will be videos. So they have made, I believe, videos for every experiment that you normally do in person. You'll be required, obviously, to fill in the information from the video and answer some questions. So typically in those experiments, as you'll see if you have the lab manual or when you get it, there's typically sort of an introduction to the experiment. There's the procedure. There's like a data sort of tables and some questions, like post-lab type questions. And there's also some pre-lab questions. And again, your lab report usually will consist of ripping out those pages and turning them in, or in this case, ripping out those pages or taking pictures and uploading them when they are done. Lab quizzes will be taken, again, the first 10 minutes of the Zoom meetings, and they're worth 5 points. In general, the lab will consist of those kind of 3 things: pre-lab questions, report sheets, and post-lab questions. There are pre-lab questions, which you can find at the end of the syllabus. At the end of the syllabus, you'll see ones that are labeled pre-lab questions. And then you'll also see ones that say, do the pre-lab questions and then do Q1, Q3, Q4. And what those things are is, if you look through the experiment, in the data part where you record your data, there will sometimes be a data table and then right underneath it'll say like Q1, like question 1. There'll be another data table, say Q2, Q3. So the ones that are labeled pre-lab questions, there's actually a section in the lab manual in each experiment that says pre-lab questions. So there's questions underneath there. And then throughout the report, there's individual questions that are labeled like Q1, Q2. And again, those are questions that you should be able to answer without having done the experiment. And since they are pre-lab questions, they should probably be done before you get to lab on that day. And again, she may check it somehow. She may have you upload it when you get there, or maybe she might just collect it all together. Again, she'll give you some more information on that when you get to lab. But typically pre-lab questions and stuff like that are due, obviously when you arrive to lab. Each experiment will be 10 points. It'll be graded on accuracy. If there's any type of unknowns, correct calculations, sig figs, whatever it may be, dependent on that particular experiment. My understanding is it looks like that she will make each of the labs due by the following week at the beginning of lab. Each one will be 10 points, and she'll take 1 point off for every day it's late. And obviously you will also lose points if she can't read it either. So make sure that you do read, it is legible. Let's just talk about that for everything. Make sure everything is legible. And not only legible in terms of sort of writing, when you upload it as a PDF file, I've seen many uploaded, many different types of files over the years here. Sometimes it's like super dark, you can barely read the page. Sometimes it's super light, you can barely read the page. Sometimes it's like super zoomed and you can't read anything. So make sure as you sort of make the PDFs, or you maybe practice making the PDFs, make sure that when you open it, you could actually see what's going on, see what's on the page. You could see what's going on, and it can be read. So obviously if anything cannot be read, it's going to affect obviously your grade. So you want to do that. Your lowest grade for each lab will be, your lowest grade for each lab will be dropped for each section. So basically your lowest lab grade, not every lab. So your lowest grade on your lab report will be dropped. So one of your lowest ones will be dropped. So just in case, you do miss or something like that, you get one drop. Now, a couple important things as well is sometimes people follow the pre-lab questions in terms of the schedule. Make sure that you actually follow the lab schedule as to which lab we're doing. We will skip some of the labs that are present in the lab manual. We will actually not do them at all. And we may go over some other ones in some different orders. So make sure that you follow the lab schedule, which is actually in the syllabus here as well, and not just pick whichever one comes next. Usually around week 3 is when that problem happens. People go and do the density experiment, and we never do the density experiment here. So, at some point we skip over some, and at some weeks we do multiple labs in the same week. So you may do like experiment 4 and 5 together. So make sure that you do look at the schedule and follow that. You cannot miss, really more than 2 lab periods or turning in assignments before you're not eligible to pass the class. So make sure that, you don't miss too many and stuff like that. That's going to be an issue. Cell phones, again, to gain the most out of this class, you should refrain from using your cell phone during lecture, lab, and discussion. You should be paying attention to what's going on, and it will help you. You should not really be playing on your electronic devices. Obviously, as we talked about before, you cannot use your phone or anything like that for quizzes, exams, or anything of that nature to look up things. I wouldn't use it for lab either. It's a very common thing. People just start Googling answers for labs. I wouldn't do that either. Cheating, obviously, you should not cheat, both on quizzes, exams, whatever it may be. Also, in terms of lab reports and those type of things, make sure that you clearly understand her rules for the lab and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So, she happens to put you in some breakout rooms or something like that where you all could come together and stuff. Make sure that you collaborate, but whatever you write on the paper, make sure it is your own work and not just copy directly from somebody. And obviously on exams and quizzes, that goes without saying. And just a reminder as well, there are different versions of all these things. So I would never have the right answer on the wrong version. That's probably not a great idea either. So just keep that in mind. Couple important dates. Looks like the last day to withdraw with a W is August 29th. Without a W, I'm sorry. And last day to withdraw with a W is November 28th. Our final exam is typically on the Wednesday there, and it looks like it is December 2nd. And just a reminder as well, December 2nd, the final actually starts earlier than our normal time. So it starts at 4:45. So again, if you're working or whatever it may be, keep that in mind so you don't arrive to the final like an hour late and stuff like that and go, everybody looks really comfy and all that good stuff. So make sure that you adjust your schedule. If you decide this is not the right time for you, not the right class, you're not digging it, you hate it, whatever it may be, hopefully that's not the case. But, it is your responsibility to sort of drop the course by the appropriate date. If you're still enrolled in the course after November 28th, then there's really not a lot of options I have to give to you. I will have to give you a grade and stuff like that. Also, if you sort of took classes last spring and, we sort of rolled halfway through the semester, maybe it was a little less than half, and we went online and stuff like that, there was probably a lot more options that you might have had at the end of the semester that you might not get this time around because you have a clear understanding of what's going on in this type of class and that it's online and everything like that. So I don't know 100% for sure, but I know in spring there was a lot of options you could have took at the end of the semester, even like at the very, very end, decide, yeah, maybe I don't want my grade or whatever. I didn't like my grade. And I have a feeling that those options may not be available to you this time around, again, because you're kind of starting out knowing and understanding the course. So just keep that in mind as well. I would have a guess that's probably the case. All right. In terms of the class, a reminder that it is a lot of material. It does take a lot of time to do well on this class. And you just got to kind of keep up with everything. It is definitely not a class that you typically just kind of show up, take some exams, take some quizzes, and hope for the best. It usually doesn't work out very well for people that way. It does take a lot of time, to sort of do well. Here's the tentative sort of breakdown of what's going on here. So we have our 90, 80, 70, 55 in terms of our breakdown in terms of our percentages. They're not necessarily set in stone. We'll kind of see where we end up at the end. They may come down a little bit and stuff like that. Exams will be worth 30% of your grade. Homework and any worksheets that you might have to turn in will be worth 5% of your grade. Attendance and coming obviously to lecture, lab, and discussion will be worth 5% of your grade. So again, not optional. You are expected to be here during the scheduled times. Quizzes will be 10% of your grade. And again, that will be our Canvas quizzes that we'll take where you'll just sort of answer questions and it is what it is. One shot, one swing at it, and then it's done. Laboratory will be 20% of your grade, and the final exam will be 30% of your overall grade when it's said and done. A couple of things here. There is also, as you can see there, some minimum scores that you technically need to score on the final. The final will be 200 points. So again, to minimally get a C, for example, you need to at least get 100%. You need to get 100% on the final now. You need to get 100 points out of 200. I don't know if I could get 100%, but that would be 100 points out of 200, which is 50%. And you need to at least obviously get 70% overall when we add everything together. So just so everybody's clear, everything gets added together at the end. So although you do have obviously a different instructor for the lab portion, she will give me the grades for the lab at the end, and it will be put together with everything else that we do pretty much in lecture, and you'll get your overall grade. So technically speaking, if you don't hit those minimums on the final, you will get a lower grade than what you technically got. So technically speaking, like it says there, for example, if you didn't get 130 points on the final, but you still managed to squeeze out enough for technically a B in the course over 80%, you technically were supposed to get a C because you didn't get the minimum score in the final. So sometimes people at the end just go, whatever, it's a final. In person, sometimes people leave it empty. I never understand that. They sit there for 2 hours or whatever and just it's just empty sometimes, or they just do like half the problems or whatever. So it's really important in this class to really stay with it all the way through the final. It's obviously worth 30% of your grade, which is a pretty big chunk of your grade. So you don't want to let up there at the very, very end on the final because it can really affect your overall grade. You just think about it, we got our final is 30%, our exams are 30%, and our quizzes are 10%. So, you know, that's 70% of your grade is basically made up of 3 exams, some quizzes, and a final. So the area where you need to do well in this class, obviously, is the exam quizzes part. And again, all the way through, sometimes people are surprised at the end. They maybe don't do as well on the final, and they see their overall grade drop and stuff like that. So hopefully that's not the case, but it can definitely happen. And I think it's just that sometimes at the end of the semester, people are like, I got a lot of finals going on. I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm just going to kind of wing it and hope for the best. I would also, in terms of the final as well, recommend very highly that as we get closer to the final, you start reviewing, because especially in this class, by the time we get to the final, we're still learning new information. And it's been a good amount of time since the original stuff we learned way back here, like, you know, weeks 1 through 5 or 6 or whatever it may be. So as you get closer to the final, it's a good idea to start reviewing a little bit and trying to keep up with some of the old stuff as well. You do have to obviously take all 3 exams, and you do have to take a final. And you, again, must not miss or fail to complete 2 days of lab work. That includes if you show up and just don't turn it in, that means you missed it. So make sure you turn in all your lab work. That's a very common thing people for some reason don't do. Even in person, people come to lab, they do the lab, they never turn in the actual paper. Turn in the paper, yes, otherwise, you know, you will not do well and you may not pass the class. So try not to miss that. That also means, again, sometimes things happen. You might miss a lab or something like that. Hopefully not. You do get a drop one. And again, you have a little bit of leadway in terms of missing another one, but you cannot continuously miss. Otherwise, you will not pass the class and you will obviously get a bad grade in here. This is our course outline. This is all the stuff that we're going to learn, in case you're curious. So a couple of notes again about this being remote instruction and some of the stuff we have talked about, but just to reiterate, all parts of this class obviously are 100% online, and that includes both the lecture, the lab, and discussion. So you should not go to campus for any reason. The lecture, lab, and discussion, again, is going to basically work just like you would if you did come to school. It is going to be a face-to-face. It will occur during our times here. And like I said, probably 99.9% of everything will be due, you know, during that particular period. We talked about before, if you miss too many of the scheduled hours, you may be dropped from the class. And that also means that all exams, quizzes, all those things will occur during our time. So sometimes people get into the habit of, well, it's online. I could just, you know, take a makeup exam or something like that whenever. And again, you're not going to be allowed to do that. You know, unless there's some type of really truly verifiable emergency that occurred that you are not able to take it. Do not even ask or plan on asking for a makeup unless, again, it's something seriously verifiably has occurred. I hope nothing like that does occur, by the way. So you can't just go like, I want to take it the next day or something like that. Again, all the lab activities as well will take care during this kind of normally scheduled time. And again, she'll have more information for you on that. And again, I know for sure that she's planning on doing that lab quizzes at the beginning. So you want to make sure that you are there on time. As we also talked about, again, you do want to be respectful to everybody when you're chatting or talking or videoing or whatever it may be. Please be respectful to everybody, myself included. Otherwise, you know, you will be asked to leave this class and not asked to return. Also, as well, in most likelihood, everything will be recorded, but in addition, lectures and our discussions may be recorded. That means, again, as I talked about, if you do participate with your microphone, I think that is really the time where it may pick you up in terms of the video, if your video's on, or your talk. Most of the time, it will probably just be me on those videos, but again, it's possible it could happen. These recordings will probably be posted on our Canvas site. They probably will also be hosted on YouTube or any of those other type of sites, because they can have plenty of storage there, but a link to them will be here and probably on our Canvas site. A reminder, though, that if these recordings are put up there, they are for a courtesy for you to watch them again and review the notes. They're not for you to use for any other personal reasons other than for this class. And they are not to act as a substitute of, well, he posts the lectures, why do I need to show up? Again, if you do not show up, you will be dropped. And if I see that is a situation where people are not coming, there will be no more posting of lectures or anything like that, and nobody will benefit from it. So again, it's just going to be a courtesy if it is posted up there. Again, this is a face-to-face class, and you are expected to be here during the scheduled times. You cannot use the recordings as a substitute for showing up to class. So again, please think about all these sort of things that we talked about in this class. Again, it's a little bit different than a normal face-to-face class, but it is going to be done that way. There is things like video, obviously conferencing. There are recorded lectures. There may be some video proctoring as well for exams and quizzes. You know, so you want to really think if you are comfortable with all this for this particular class and you're okay with that. If not, if you're not comfortable with those type of things, you know, maybe this isn't the right semester for you to take the course, but that is the way this course is going to sort of run and stuff like that. So do you think about it? I assume that if you continue on, you're okay with all this, including the proctoring, the videoing, and everything like that. But again, if you're not, really do think about it as to how this course is going to be run. And real time going to be run. I'm not going to change it halfway through and we're going to just go do what we want to do things. Everything will continue exactly as scheduled. Lastly, obviously, since everything is pretty much online, Canvas is really our place where everything's going to end up. There's an announcement section where every announcement remains the entire semester. So you could reread them if you need to. I would also check, obviously, your Rio Hondo email, as I assume that is the email that's associated with the Canvas site. So any announcement I make, you should get a notification there. As well, we'll be using the Canvas gradebook. I will just say that it'll give you sort of a good idea as to where you're at. It may not be perfectly 100% correct. Again, it does some weird math sometimes, but it'll give you a pretty good idea as to where you're sitting. Probably in the class and stuff like that. So you'll have a good idea. Again, I won't say it might be 100% perfect, but it'll give you at least an idea as to where you're at. Obviously, it's a tentative syllabus and subject to change. So again, continue to check your email and your Canvas site regularly when you go on there. Here's, again, the schedule. This is both the lecture schedule and the lab schedule. So you will know every week exactly which lab we're doing. You'll know exactly what topics we're talking about every week here as well. And you can see here, especially on the right-hand side, experiment 1 next week, experiment 2 the following week. And again, right there in week 4 is where most people screw up again. Most people go to experiment 3, which we don't do. I think experiment 3 is density. So we go off to 4 and 5. I believe we do have a holiday on week 4 there. I think it's the Monday is the holiday. So I'm sure she'll let you know in terms of the lab what is expected on that. And then you can see there's our first exam on the 21st. And our second exam there on April 8th, it looks like. That is not right. That's March. You see, I did not take that out. Yeah, come back March last time. That is wrong, obviously. I will adjust it to the right date there. See, there's always something that's wrong, I suppose. Congratulations, you've already taken exam 1 and exam 2 probably. No, I'll fix that. But it will be the week of the October 19th and the week of the 21st, and obviously not March and April or May there. But our final should be right there. Our final is the right date. That's good. I got 1 of 4. That's not bad. So that's December 2nd, and again at 4:45. And again, you can see we go through all the experiments as well, and pretty much we go right through all the chapters. The only one we really don't do is chapter 9 anymore. I think chapter 9 is nuclear chemistry, so we skip that chapter. But we go 1 through 8, and then we continue on. So really, this class again is sort of broken up into 3 parts. 1 through 8 is sort of the general chemistry part. So that's the part that involves a lot of calculations using your calculator and so forth. Now, once we get to chapter 10 and on, you pretty much don't need to pick up your calculator. There's not a calculation to be found. So it's kind of like 2 parts. First part is all kind of calculations using your calculator doing math. Second part is more memorization. So as we get into the organic chemistry, chapter 10, chapter 11, 12, 13, 15 and 14 and 16, which are the carbohydrates, the lipids. That's a lot more memorization. So people sometimes really like the second part because it's more memorization than the first part, or some people like the first part where it's more calculation than memorization. So, you know, if math and calculations aren't really your thing, you'll be very happy as soon as we get into chapter 10 probably. But if you like math and that type of stuff, the first 8 chapters, you know, you'll probably be happy with because there's a lot of calculation based. Let's see here. I think that's the only holiday we got going on here. So this is the pre-labs. And again, you can see here, it says do the pre-lab questions. So when you look in your lab manual, again, there will be a section that says pre-lab questions, and you should do those. And then you can also see it says also do questions Q2 and Q3. Again, those questions will be found in the actual experiment, and like the data page or the report page is where you'll find those. And again, these are pre-lab questions, so I'm assuming she's going to want them done before you get there. So make sure that you do take care of that before you get to class. Again, make sure you follow the schedule that we just saw and do the appropriate ones. As you saw on that schedule, there may be more than 1 lab done in a week. This is the homework problems from the actual textbook. Again, these homework problems can be found in the chapter itself, in the actual reading part. And then, like I said before, there'll be some questions, more reading, some more questions, and then at the end. So what you see here is a lot of questions. So typically what you have to do for each of these chapters is minimum to get credit is every other one that's listed. So you don't have to do every single one that's listed for the chapter, but minimum to get credit, every other one that's listed is what you need to do for the homework part. So for example, for chapter 1, you could start at number 3 and then do number 6, and then do number 8 and so forth, do number 11 and so forth. So you don't have to do every single one that's listed, but minimum you need to do every other one that's listed. If you want to do them all, you can. You don't get extra credit, but if you want to do them all, you can. But minimum you have to do that. The other thing that always confuses people as well is when you go to chapter 1 and you're looking for question number 3, it will say 1.3. 1.3 means chapter 1, question 3. To find question number 6, it will say 1.6, which means chapter 1, question 6. When you go to chapter 2, it will say 2.3, which means chapter 2, question number 3. 2.7, chapter 2, question number 7. So in the actual book, they kind of put the chapter number first, dot the question number. So here where it just says do question 7, if that was for chapter 3, you would find question 3.7, and that would be the one that you would do. Okay, so that's something that sometimes confuses people as well. So let's see. And that is the end of the syllabus there. Any questions on the syllabus? Any questions on the class that I could answer for you? Okay, so let me see here. Let me stop sharing real quick. And let's go here, maybe. Go here. So let me just kind of, again, I think most of you probably have seen it, but again, this is our Canvas site. And This again is where you can find pretty much everything. Again, there's the announcement section, which obviously will have announcements. So if you haven't read them, make sure you do read them so you understand you haven't missed anything. Pretty much everything else will be in the module section. And the Canvas site will be broken up really into 2 parts. And one part will be the lecture and discussion part. Yeah, I'll get to your questions in just 1 second about the textbook, I think. Yeah, just give me 1 second. I'll get to those. So up here is the lecture part of the Canvas site, and that's where you'll find all the information involving the lecture and discussion part. Anything that I post will be there. So as you can see right now, these are the links. So every Monday and Wednesday, these will be updated, these links. And again, you can find the link to our Zoom meeting for our lecture. For our discussion, you could find here as well the link for our discussion one. It is 2 separate links, so don't come back through the same link that we just did. Here's the syllabus as well, as I just dropped it down there. Here's also the lecture notes. So the lecture notes for chapter 1, again, these are PDF files basically of the lecture notes and the slides that we're going to go over. So if you want, you can print them out or write on them or however you want to do it as we go through it. But here's all the notes that you could find and use as we go through the lecturing. There will be other information up here in the lecture part. There'll probably be exam 1 reviews, exam 2 information and stuff like that. So make sure you check it. And basically how we did this is we basically separated the module section into basically 2 parts. On the bottom right now, there is nothing there so far for lab, but at some point there will be information for lab, and all the lab stuff will occur underneath that. So top part of the module section is pretty much my part, lectures and discussions. Bottom part is the lab part, where she'll probably be posting stuff, also where you probably go to turn in assignments and so forth. Let's see here. So that's that. Now, let's see here. Where's that check go here? All right, so there's a couple of questions. Let me just take a look real quick here. Okay. So a couple of things. I think there was a question about the textbook first. Let me kind of get there. There you go. Okay. I unfortunately cannot show you the textbook. I don't actually have the copy with me, unfortunately, with me right now. But it is the Smith textbook. So it's not the Timberlake textbook. Okay. So try to make that clear. So there are some Chem 110 sections that are using Mastering Chemistry, and the Mastering Chemistry that they were selling goes with the Timberlake textbook, and that is not what we're using. We're using the Smith textbook, and we are using Timberlake, but that's only for the lab manual, okay? And it has nothing to do with Mastering Chemistry. So the custom version of the textbook, I don't recall off the top of my head that they sell usually in the bookstore. But if you sort of find it online, I believe it's usually, I think the second edition is a black cover maybe with like a flower on it, and it will say Smith, and it will say sort of general unknown and stuff like that. So in terms of the textbook, here's the deal with the textbook. Like I said before, we're not going to really ever say open up the textbook and let's do some stuff out of it or anything like that. I would definitely get it sooner rather than later. You'll need it to do the homework problems out of and stuff like that. Obviously, you probably want to read it and stuff like that. But for physically sort of in class, we're never going to sort of open it and stuff like that. But you definitely want it to do the homework, to read it, and then obviously have it to ask questions in case you have questions on homework. Let's see here, a couple other things. Let me take a look here. That That's not good. I apologize. My screen here is small. Let me see what else we got going on here. Let's see. So in terms of the video for lecture discussion, all that, for me, if you want to keep it open, you're more than welcome to do so. I don't have a problem with it. If you just, again, please be respectful, proper clothing, you know, make sure nothing bad is in the camera view or anything like that. At this point, I'm not going to make it a requirement that you have to keep it open 100% of the time and stuff like that. But if you'd like to, you're more than welcome to do so. We are going to have discussion today. So those people that do have Monday discussion, there will be a discussion today, which was the next question. Which means if you have discussion today, that means the other half of the class should be going to your lab meeting, which I'm hopeful that she emailed you the link, hopefully, to the lab meeting. But you should have a lab meeting today with her. If you have Monday lab, if you have Monday discussion, you will have discussion here today with me. And then on Wednesday, those people that have lab will come to discussion on Wednesday, okay? So only half of you at the end of the lecture here should not hang out, but come back to the discussion. The other half I should see on Wednesday in discussion, and that other half should be going to your lab lecture. Yeah. And let's see. No, unfortunately, I cannot. I can't post the homework problems on Canvas because it comes out of the textbook, so I don't really have it in that sort of form. But again, remember that the homework problems will not be due until exam day, so you do have a little bit of time before any type of homework is due. I just don't have a way to kind of do that and stuff like that. That would be good. If you'd like to show it, go for it. Well, I'll stop it right there. There it is. That is the textbook. So that is the custom version of the textbook. If you're looking at your screen, thank you, Vanessa. That is the custom version that you could typically get at Rio Hondo. If you look up Smith second edition, there is a hardcover version of it. And on that hardcover version also, I think, has a black cover and a flower on it, or some type of flower. They're very big on flowers in this guy's book, or a lady's book, and stuff like that. So thank you very much on holding that up. I would hold one up, but I don't think it's the right edition of it that I have next to me. I don't think. Like I said, you don't necessarily have to get that one. You can probably find it. The important part is to make sure that you find the Smith version of the book, and that is obviously general, organic, and biochemistry, and it is the second edition. So again, like I said, it's been out for a little bit, so you may be able to maybe find it a little bit cheaper and stuff like that. I don't know, Vanessa, do you have the lab manual by any chance as well? Perfect. There's the lab manual. It's green these days, okay? Thank you very much. So that definitely you probably have to get, I'm imagining, through Rio's site, I think, probably. But the textbook, again, itself, you can find it as well. Yeah, that would be my guess as well. Don't show up, obviously, to anything on campus. Do it however they do it, drop off, pick up, or however they're going to do it. There is no access code for lab or anything like that. The lab manual is just that book that Vanessa just held up there, that green book with the cover, and that's what you need. So I know kind of at the last minute for 110, some of the instructors decided they want to do online homework. And you may see somewhere on the Rio site something about mastering chemistry and like an online homework access code. And you don't need that for our class for sure, okay? So it sort of happened at the last minute, and I decided not to use the online homework because A is the online homework, I think is another $70 if you just get the access code, or 100 and something for a book that we don't even use. So it didn't make sense to me to do it. So if you see something that involves mastering chemistry or an access code, you do not need that for our class. So let me be clear, you do not need it. The only two things that you really need at this point for our class, unless something drastically changes and somebody tells me I have to use it, which I don't think is going to happen, you need the Smith textbook that was held up, some version of that Smith textbook, which is the second edition, and you need the lab manual, which is that green book that was held up. Oddly, the lab manual is by Timberlake. Any other questions? That does happen a lot, the lab back orders and stuff like that, unfortunately. So they may have an alternative version of what you could use, and she'll probably have more information about that when you do go to lab. Other questions on that? I think hopefully I got everybody's question, I hope. Yeah. Okay, so what we will do here then is a reminder that if you do have lab today, you hopefully she emailed you, I hope, the link to come to lab. If you have discussion, you could find our discussion link in the module section where you found this one. And again, do not come back through the same link that we just did here. And the reason for that is we're going to keep it separate. It makes it easier for the recordings and stuff like that. Okay, perfect. So you got it. Cool. Okay. Yeah, so for the homework, it is every other problem that's listed is the minimum that you need to do. For the homework, you could do them all, but you won't get extra credit, but it's the minimum amount that needs to be done to turn in. And to be honest with you, sometimes people ask, like, there's not the answer in the back of the book, and that's okay. So for example, if it says to do question 4 and like question 5 is in the back of the book and it's like the same question, honestly, the homework's really for you to benefit from. So you can do question 5 rather than 4, but there has to be some type of minimum that you have to do. So the minimum number that you have to do is every other one that's listed throughout the entire chapter there. So you get a variety of questions, not the first several, stuff like that. It will count for full credit if you do a minimum of every other one that's listed. Other questions on that? And again, if you're not sure, you could do them all. You don't have to worry about it. So you'll definitely have done enough, but minimum to get credit, every other one that's listed. I don't really care what kind of paper, since I'm not really getting it anymore in person, but regular sheet of paper would be good. It could be lined paper, could be blank paper, it doesn't matter, but the homework does need to be handwritten, not typed or anything like that. So it does need to be handwritten and uploaded. The due date for the homework is the same day as the exam. So exam 1, I think, was September 21st. So that is the day that the first homework should be due. All right, so we will stop here so you could get maybe stretch and go off the lab. So we will, hello, we will say, I will say goodbye to half of you. The other half I will see on Wednesday, and the other half I will see in discussion in about 5 minutes or so. Last thing before you log off really quick, again, if you did not type here in the chat box for roll at the beginning, please do so you do not get marked absent. And otherwise, I will see half of you in about 5 minutes. The other half I'll see you on Wednesday. It's very nice to see you and meet you. Hopefully we'll have a nice semester. Okay. All right. Don't forget to go to the lab, and don't forget to come back to discussion.